All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. Imagine being on the very last day of your sophomore year of high school, and suddenly, bam, you're hit directly in the face with a baseball bat. I mean, the impact was so severe it literally shattered both of his eye sockets, broke his nose, and put him in a medically induced coma. This is the incredibly dramatic real-life story of James Clear. His recovery? It was agonizingly slow. But here's the fascinating part. To rebuild his entire life, Clear didn't rely on massive, sweeping changes. He leaned on something incredibly small, tiny daily routines. Just going to sleep early, keeping his room clean. And those tiny routines, they compounded. They completely transformed his life, eventually making him a best-selling author and a globally recognized expert on human behavior. It's an absolute testament to the sheer power of what we're unpacking today. But before we get into the exact science of how habits actually form, we really need to nail down this word, atomic. It actually has two distinct meanings. First, it's an extremely small amount of a thing, right? Like this single irreducible unit of a larger system. But second, and this is key, it's the source of immense energy or power. So small, but extremely mighty. And, this perfectly connects to what a habit is. Put simply, a habit is a routine or practice performed regularly. It's your brain's automatic response to a specific situation. So when you mash those two concepts together, you get an atomic habit. It's a tiny, super easy-to-do behavior that is simultaneously the engine for incredible power and truly remarkable results. So for today's explainer, here's our roadmap. We're looking at 1. The anatomy of a habit. 2. Law 1, make it obvious. 3. Law 2, make it attractive. 4. Law 3, make it easy. And 5. Law 4, make it satisfying. Part 1. The anatomy of a habit. Building the foundation. Let's start with the absolute biological baseline that makes any of this change possible. Think about behavior change kind of like the layers of an onion. The outermost layer? That's outcomes. What you get, like losing weight or winning a championship. The middle layer is processes, what you do, like starting a new gym routine. But the deepest layer, right there in the very center, that requires changing your actual identity and beliefs. It's about who you wish to become. If your habits don't match up with your underlying identity, the change simply isn't going to stick. So to build those habits that do stick, we have to look under the hood. Every single habit runs on a 4-step feedback loop. First, you've got the problem phase. This contains the cue, the trigger for your brain, and the craving, the underlying motivation. Then we flip over to the solution phase. That's the response, which is the actual action you take, followed by the reward, which satisfies that craving and wires the whole loop together. And guess what? This cycle is running continuously in the background of your brain right now. Section 2. Law 1, make it obvious. Now, the really cool part is that those 4 steps map perfectly onto our 4 laws, starting right at the beginning with the cue. If you want to build a good habit, you absolutely have to make it obvious. Vague goals like, oh, I'm going to exercise more, usually just fall flat because they lack clarity. Instead, try using a highly specific formula, what's called an implementation intention. I will do this behavior at this time in this location. Like, I will exercise for 20 minutes at 6 a.m. in my living room. Boom, crystal clear. Another awesome trick is habit stacking. This is where you literally attach a new habit directly onto an existing one. After I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. You're giving your brain an undeniable cue. Now, what if you want to break a bad habit? Well, we just flip it. You use the inversion technique. Make the cue invisible by entirely removing it from your environment. We tend to think that people with incredible self-control just have superpowers of willpower, but research actually tells a totally different story. They simply spend less time in tempting situations. So if you're constantly getting distracted by your phone, don't rely on your flawed human willpower to ignore it. Just make the cue invisible. Leave the phone in another room while you work. Problem solved. Section 3, Law 2, make it attractive. Let's look at how this builds squarely on the craving phase of our habit loop. Here's the thing about habits. They are a dopamine-driven feedback loop. And they are heavily fueled by the anticipation of a reward, not just the fulfillment of it. Because of this little biological quirk, we can actually engineer irresistible habits by bundling things we want to do with things we need to do. It's called temptation bundling. For example, tell yourself you can only listen to your absolute favorite podcast while you're at the gym. Plus, joining a culture where your desired behavior is just the normal everyday behavior, or setting up a quick motivation ritual right before a tough task, that heavily influences how attractive a habit looks to your brain. And the inversion here? Make bad habits unattractive by actively reprogramming your predictions. We repeat bad habits because deep down, we predict they're going to make us feel better. So to break them, you have to shift your mindset. Highlight the benefits of avoiding that behavior. When you consciously start associating avoiding a bad habit with positive feelings and a stronger sense of identity, that bad habit suddenly becomes pretty unattractive really fast. Section 4. Law 3. Make it easy. This law acts right on the response phase and leverages our deep biological drive to just conserve energy. We all naturally follow the law of least effort. Basically, our brains are kinda lazy. If you give someone two similar options, they will almost always gravitate toward the one that requires the least amount of work. So if you want to build a good habit, you have to remove the friction. Prime your environment so the right choice is the easiest choice. One of my favorite tools for this is the 2-minute rule. Take any new habit and scale it way down until it takes just 2 minutes. Don't aim to read a whole book. Aim to read literally 1 page. Make it so incredibly easy that you can't say no. And hey, whenever possible, just automate things completely with technology or a one-time purchase, like setting up an automatic transfer to your savings account. On the flip side, if you want to crush a bad habit, you've got to crank up the friction. Make it difficult. Add as many steps as you can between you and that bad behavior. You can also use commitment devices. These are choices you make in the present that lock in better behavior for the future, making the wrong choice nearly impossible to execute later on. A super practical example, just buy the small, individual snack-sized bags instead of the massive bulk items. It completely prevents you from mindlessly overeating on the couch. Section 5, Law 4, make it satisfying. Finally, we arrive at the reward phase, which is the ultimate decider of whether a behavior actually gets repeated. This illustrates the absolute cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated, what is immediately punished is avoided. Because human brains evolved in an immediate return environment, think foraging on the African plains, we are totally hardwired to prioritize instant gratification. So to build lasting habits in our modern delayed return world, we have to kind of trick ourselves. We have to attach a feeling of instant success or pleasure to those long-term goals. And this isn't just theory. It was famously proven by a public health worker named Stephen Luby in Karachi, Pakistan. He was trying to improve basic sanitation and hand washing to stop the rapid spread of disease in these really dense neighborhoods. Now, he achieved massive success, but it wasn't just by handing out pamphlets and educating people. No, he simply gave the residents a highly satisfying premium soap. It lathered up quickly, it smelled absolutely fantastic. Because the actual experience of washing hands became immediately pleasurable, the habit stuck. And the disease rates, they plummeted. It's genius. The inversion for this final law is incredibly powerful. To break a bad habit, you have to make it immediately unsatisfying. There cannot be a gap between the action and the painful consequence. How do you do that? Well, add a tangible, immediate cost. Get an accountability partner to watch your behavior, or honestly, even sign a formal habit contract. When there is an immediate, public, and genuinely painful cost to your bad habit, the odds of you repeating it drop to near zero. So as we zoom out and look at the big picture, it becomes really clear that these 4 laws are active levers. You use them to fix the overarching system of your life rather than just relying on sheer brute force willpower. If you've been struggling to change, please remember this. The problem isn't you. The problem is your system. By actively designing an environment where your good habits are obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, success just becomes a natural byproduct of your day. Ultimately, making a lasting change all comes down to identity. So I want to leave you with this one question to think about. Every action is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Who are you voting for today? Look, you absolutely don't need to be perfect to change your life. You just need to build a system of atomic habits that casts a majority of votes for your best self. Start small, intentionally design your system, and just watch the remarkable results unfold.